right. Eyes glazed, so I'm gonna ride tonight. Hard press, fired up, ready to go. Punk rock tunes on the radio. You wanna find trouble? Look my way. Bad news, hard looking here to stay. You're looking for trouble? I'm your man. Never gonna change. Be who I am. Whoa.
Welcome to Throttle Stop Moto Podcast, brought to you by Pandora's. We're your hosts, Justin,
Jeff Griffiths,
and today we have a very special guest. And since he belongs to you, I will let you do the introduction.
Well, that's my dad, Garry Griffiths. We grew up. I grew up with him all my life, and
That's
so
usually how it works.
I have a calm demeanor, right? And it's more or less because I've dealt with his excited demeanor most of my life, and someone had to bring down the tone of the room.
Wow. He
balance
rehearsed this, huh?
But today we're going to explain me. This is going to be a therapy session. By having him in here.
That's a good use of studio time.
He's not wrong.
Cheaper than a therapist.
We have an hour, okay? And at the end, you're going to say, "I'm sorry, our time is up."
Should we have recorded this out in the main studio on the couch?
Oh, I should be laying on the couch.
Have you
right.
laid on the couch?
I know, you're right. But anyway, he has this excited demeanor, and it really went through his entire life as far as all this energy had to be directed somewhere. And he directed it toward racing. He directed it toward running the shop. And so if I haven't already shown that, or if you haven't seen the other episodes, our family has a long history of the motorcycle business and in racing and things like that. So I wanted to kind of explore some of that today.
All right. So, Garry, you want to give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Well, yeah, I'm Garry Griffith. I was raised in Georgia early, and then I went to Tennessee in '72. And anyway, I always worked for the family. I started working when I was 12 for my dad. My dad worked for his dad, and my son worked for me. So anyway, it's a motorcycle family. We love what we do. It's very exciting. There was a point where I got burnout kind of, but now I'm kind of missing it since I sold the dealership a few years ago. But anyway, happy for Jeff and the way that he's developed and doing well with Pandora's, and thankful to Pandora's for all they've done for our family, buying us out and giving me an opportunity to retire, even though I don't like the R word. But motorcycles are everything. Like I said, started working at 12, and right after school I'd go to work and I'd be sweeping, and if I slowed down, my dad made me find something to do.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
Need more of that nowadays.
Yeah, Jeff was more of an intellect. See, I was more of a manual labor guy. Jeff, he just didn't like pushing the broom. I don't know, the broom didn't fit his hands or something. Wasn't quite right. So anyway,
Sounds like a familiar dynamic.
Yeah. I would be at the shop, running the website, doing some parts inventory, things like that, and he'd say, "Why are you sitting around? I told you to do something." Like, "Dad, I may not look busy to you, but I am extremely busy right now."
When my dad came back in the back of the shop, I had to look busy. I was like,
Sorry.
Then
Weeks ago.
it's like, I had employees that were like, they'd come back and I'm like, they just sat there. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm charging a battery." I'm like, that doesn't require you to do anything. You don't have to watch it, which
make sure it didn't catch on fire.
Yeah, but
and my dad was the same way. And so if we didn't look busy, he'd find something for us to do.
Yeah.
I grew up working in his shop, and it took so long. Once I kind of got out on my own and started my career path, but same thing that you had to go through. It took forever to convince my dad that I was actually making money, even though I didn't leave the house.
Yeah.
It's like, you're still in your shorts and your t-shirt. You're in your pajamas. What'd you do today? And I'm like, I actually made plenty of money today on the computer.
Yeah.
It's like it's and now he gets it. You know, it's
all about providing a service. You know, you have to have something that you're offering to be able to get paid for it.
Exactly.
You know, in this world. So
You know, I did learn to have the common courtesy to at least look busy.
there you go.
You know, you ever watch Seinfeld? You have George. He held papers, looked frustrated all the time.
Oh yeah.
You look busy.
Just look stressed out, and everybody thinks you're
Yeah.
doing something. How you doing today? You know,
I'm getting through.
just making it.
But
So stressed.
Anyway, I sent you some pictures, and if you want to look at that first picture there, that is my great grandfather on Church Street in Cleveland, and you see there's a whole row of early 20s. Well, he started the shop in 1926, but 20s models Harley Davidsons out there. He is the gentleman all the way to the left, and he's wearing a leather tie, and that was a thing that he did all the time. He always had a leather tie on, and it's kind of weird. But the thing I notice in this is that you have people from different walks of life, and I pointed this out whenever I posted this originally on Griffiths Cycles page, but there are people of different races here, and that's something that you really don't see a lot of in 1926.
Especially in the South.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to think you're heading into. I don't know when this picture was taken. It was before he moved up the road, but I would imagine that this is somewhere like early Great Depression. So it's just a way that people got out there, and motorcycles became an outlet for people. Because once you had the bike, you bought gas, but it really didn't cost you anything to go out and have fun with your buddies. So that's when you really see the era where you see all the barrel races, log races, things like that, slow racing, and those things were really popular because it brought people together, kind of the same way that the movies did during that time.
Well, they were kind of considered a rough bunch back then, though, and they were. I don't know if you've seen the old movies, the Wild Guys, with Marlon Brando and stuff. There was some truth to that. Some of these guys were, just rough guys, and you heard foul language from times to time, But, I mean, I never heard my grandfather talk like that, or my dad, really. But a lot of their friends, they'd go to the races, and they'd try to be tough because, you're supposed to be tough on a motorcycle, and they'd talk tough, and, but... in reality, they were just good folks, just, putting on airs or whatever. But as motorcycling developed, of course, everything changed. Your Harley riders now, which used to consider Harley riders the rough bunch, but now they're doctors, lawyers, professional people, but all walks of life, really. So, I don't know, it's kind of neat. Motorcycling it's so diverse, you've got all races, all genders, of course, now. A lot of girls race. I mean, I raced with Tammy Kirk, back in the day. Kirk Cycling Dalton, I hate to plug them, but, she's got experience, and I'd run into her out in California or in New Hampshire, wherever I was racing on the weekends, and we'd always just speak. We were never real close, but it's very interesting.
Well, you had a great aunt that did some racing too, and that was unusual. And she actually raced as a boy. Her name was Ivadine, and so she raced under the name Dean.
Yeah, my dad's little sister, and she stuffed all her hair up under a helmet, and she went out at Daytona short track. From what I hear, I never actually, there was no footage, of course,
right?
But she won a race, and they wouldn't let girls race, but she beat all the guys at the Daytona short track, and they couldn't really. It wasn't real public, that she did, but she was proud of herself. The family was proud of her, and she was one tough cookie.
Sounds like a great premise for a movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be.
There we go.
She was
Nobody
Dean Griffith
steal
at
that.
the time, right?
Dean Griffith, yeah. She died a few years ago. My aunt Ivadine Watson was her name when she passed. But,
which is actually interesting because that's our connection to the Watson family with Mountain View as well. So we're actually somewhat related, but distantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you got I've seen old pictures of them at the Cleveland Speedway on a Zundap, and they're doing a game where you blow a balloon up and something like that. I can't remember.
I wish I had that picture. I've got it somewhere, but it was pretty interesting to see all these. I forgot what they called these events they had. Where they eat a hot dog and they ride a plank and slow races.
But they do that at the
Field
Cleveland
meets.
Speedway.
Field meets.
Field meet, okay.
Yeah. Speaking of Cleveland Speedway, I thought that's something interesting that I started to bring a trophy though. But I don't know if you've ever heard of motorcycle demolition derbies.
No.
But anyway,
That sounds
I'm
amazing.
undefeated. I've entered 2, and you ram each other.
Sounds like a
until-
death race.
Well, it was
Can you imagine
crazy.
getting your leg caught up in that?
No,
I couldn't.
It was just they marked off at Cleveland Speedway like an intermission, and they supplied all these bikes, and they're rat bikes, CB350 Honda twins. Okay, so you just run and ram into each other. And I mean, I had knocked this guy down. This guy was coming towards me. I lifted my knee up just in time. Bam! He smashed it right here. So I kicked him off of me. This guy that I'd knocked down, I grabbed his spark plug cap and threw it. and he's like, "Hey man, that's not fair." I said, "No rules." But anyway, we just like jousting. We'd hit at each other and I'd kick them. But I'm undefeated. I won 2 years in a row, which is it's just interesting little
Can
tidbit.
you imagine the liability today?
So anyway, after I won both times, I got the 357 Magnum out. Everybody knows about the 357 Magnum. But I've got my checkered flag and I wheelied all the way around the track there at Cleveland Speedway. It was so fun. And this is the craziest thing, but it was really fun. But
That's the wildest thing I've ever heard.
as-
I gotta ask, does it take skill or stupidity to win that one?
A little of both.
Okay.
It's just a little, it was really crazy, but
The bravest guy wins.
had to do something. Well, I was innovative. I come up with ways, like the spark plug.
Yeah.
Like, if you couldn't get your bike going, you're out. But you could
Yeah.
you could pick it up and start it and keep going.
Okay.
But my brother was in it, and my friend Mike Brinkley was in it, and
Golly.
but all these kids bought these checkered flags, and they were bringing them down to me with their parents. Sign it. I'm like, Garry Griffith, #1. Garry. Everybody, thought I was some kind of hero. It wasn't no big deal. I mean, it was just a little small town, that I won a demolition derby in motorcycles. But anyway,
How do we not have video footage of that?
It was somewhere. I've seen it.
I think Brinkley had some of that.
We'll see if we can get some of
We're
that.
gonna I wonder why that didn't take off.
I think it started at Daytona Bike Week, or Sturgis or something.
Somewhere where there was a lot of drinking.
Well, that's the thing. I wasn't. Now, maybe that's why I won. Because the only sober one out there. Maybe I don't know.
We're asking what it takes, but I talked about having a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to do something like that, but also just like so many stories that I've heard him tell me. He tells him what he was thinking during those times.
Yeah.
And it takes that energy where it's just not erratic energy. You have to be thoughtful while you're doing all these things, and including the racing career you have.
Well, of course. Yeah, you got to, like, racing, and I never did, like nowadays you talk about, tire wear. He's going to run out of tire before the end of the race. I never thought about that ever. I'm just going as hard as I can the whole time. There was no pacing myself or anything. The only thing I had to do was to control myself on the first couple of laps because I was always afraid of getting out there in cold tires. We didn't have tire warmers back then,
Yeah.
And in fact, the weekend that I won Mid-Ohio, which is that trophy over there, I won that in 1986. It was a 250 Grand Prix class there. Nobody expected me to win. I didn't expect to win. And it was kind of funny that the night before the race, we're sitting around up there at Ohio. We're sitting around my van, and some of these, big names, Bubba Schobert, Donnie Green, Rich Oliver, all these famous guys, they were all hanging around when we were having a couple of bratwursts, telling stories. And so finally, like at 9:30, 10 o'clock, so I'm going to the Marriott, and I'm going to the Hilton. Like, where are you staying, Griffith? I'm staying at the Econo Dodge. And I'm going to whoop all y'all in the morning. And they're like, "Oh, you country, you ain't beating nobody, And sure enough, I did. So.
Were you sleeping with the bike in the hotel room with you?
No, I was in the van.
Oh, you were
The Econo Dodge.
Oh, the Dodge.
Yeah,
Okay.
literally slept in the van. I mean, I was budget racing. I had a factory bike, which
Hey.
you had to send a resume and everything to get a TZ250. But anyway, just talking about the tires, I got off on a tangent. When I went out for practice Friday morning, I had my fresh tires and everything. I'm just going out the first turn. I ate it. I crashed right off the bat. Tire split out, high-sided, smack. I'm hitting my head on the ground. It's like a terrible way to start the weekend. But as the weekend progressed, I had a GTU. I ran a GTU bike in an endurance race. So I actually went to Victory Lane twice that weekend. On Saturday, I won that. The GTU thing with me, and Steve Nardiello was my teammate. But anyway, we were 6th overall against all the 1100s and everything. But it was really fun. But twice in one weekend, that was quite a weekend for me. And so I called Mom after I won the race on Sunday. And I'm waiting in line to get to the phone. We didn't have cell phones. I'm like, hey, Mom, I won. Oh, he won. Hey, Don, he won. What place did you get? I said, I won. That's good. What place did you get? First place, I won. She couldn't understand that, But anyway.
Even Mom didn't believe me.
No, it was unlikely. I'm sitting there before the race with Rich Oliver, who was a, Formula 2 guy. He won more races than anybody in Formula 2. But so I'm sitting there with him in the hot, and I'm nervous. He says, what's wrong, Griffith? I said, man, I'm nervous. He goes, why? I says, I think I can win this. He goes, you think you can win? Like that? I'm like, yeah. And, I'm getting cold chills thinking about it. But I had a terrible start. I was 6th out of the keyhole, and then I just picked him off and finally won. I didn't even know when I passed for first, really. I was just passing people. It was just all I could do to,
Rich was mad about that pass, wasn't he?
Draft. Well, I did kind of stuff him in a turn. He thought I really got ahead of him. He was just upset, but he turned into me and knocked his bike out of gear. He ran off the track. I think he still got back on track and got 5th or something, but he was mad at me, came up to me in victory lane telling me I should have picked ping pong, or, actually he said, you don't belong out here with us, you dumb hillbilly. And I said, hey, buddy, if you wanted a safe sport, you should have picked ping pong or golf. I said, I beat you. And anyway, we're friends now. It was, heated at the time, but I sprayed him with champagne, But
was that when you had the victory party at the Ocoee house or cabin?
Yes. The next race weekend was Road Atlanta. So from Mid-Ohio to Road Atlanta, Wednesday at the cabin in Ocoee, I decided to have a victory party.
Yeah.
So a lot of great people came to that. It was exciting. It was nuts.
You had Kevin Schwantz,
Bill Beach, Donnie Green, Jimmy Felice, John Ashmead, just a bunch of guys.
And these are names other than Kevin Schwantz. These are guys who went on to be big names, and now they're starting to fade in memory now.
Yeah.
So other than Kevin Schwantz, that's kind of fading from memory. Kevin Schwantz still is doing the MotoGP officiating, and he's the guy that everyone's mad at right now.
No, that's Spencer that everybody's mad at. Yeah, everybody's mad at Spencer. But anyway, it's beside the point. Kevin Schwantz is, he's a great guy, and he's an ambassador to the sport, and he helped make the Circuit of the Americas. He helped make that to come to pass, and he's still a friend of mine. We talk occasionally. But anyway, that was quite a time.
So how old were you then?
25.
Completely self-funded, no sponsors other than the shop.
I had Castro, Walter von Schoenfeld with Castro, Dale Singleton. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of him. He was a Formula One national champion for many years. He was the pig farmer from Dalton. That he brought a pig with him to the races, and he won Daytona. They call it. He was the original Mr. Daytona before Scott Russell ever was. He'd bring a pig, and in victory lane he'd wave the pig. But it was nuts, the stuff he did.
Well, that tells you how grassroots the efforts were back then.
Yeah.
We talk about the hours that we keep at the shop, and it was traditional for shops to close early on Saturday and be closed on Monday because they'd go Saturday, travel to go race, and then they would have to be traveling back on Monday after partying on Sunday night.
Yeah, there's a lot of that went on. That's one of the reasons I quit racing, honestly. It was great. I had my glory days. It was fun. It was exciting. But after the races on Sunday, nobody got crazy before they raced. People talk about that, but nobody was that dumb. Maybe a couple that stayed up late the night before, but I'm not mentioning any names.
Those people aren't really around racing anymore.
Yeah. But anyway, I quit for several reasons. The party atmosphere was just too much. It's too tempting, and I was raised in the church. I knew I should have been in church on Sunday, but it brings up something else. I've been out winning races before, and I was singing a hymn. Oh, victory in Jesus, my Savior. And I turned to him, and I'm like, all right, I win, But anyway, glad I quit. Now I'm happy to have a family, and I've got trophies, but I really have a trophy wife. My wife Dava, and she was so sweet.
Does she appreciate
that? She was so good to give me children and a family, and I'm so glad I did it because a lot of my friends, like we talked about earlier, went to Europe and became world champions, and some of them can't even walk anymore. Some of them are dead, and some of them are just not happy. And I'm really blessed and happy with what has developed in my life.
Whenever he asked my mom out, he asked her to be his pit tootsie.
I really did. I said, would you like to be my pit tootsie? What do I have to do? Well, I'm not going to make a list, but just whatever I say, whatever. I mean, bring me a towel, bring me a drink,
Check my tire pressure,
Yeah,
lube
yeah.
the chain, make sure I have gas.
Oh, no, he wouldn't trust that.
No, my brother Terry, now he was great. He passed a couple years ago, but I mean, he had his issues, but he really helped a lot at the races and helped me tune my bike. And he got me sponsors. We got off track on that, but I had Castro sponsor me. I had Dunlop Tires helping me. Ed Cycles in Cleveland, actually.
Klotz.
Klotz actually helped me too. Klotz and Castro. I used 2 different products there.
Yeah.
And then KK Cycle Supply.
Uh-huh.
Sean Dillon Kelly is racing now, and that was his dad and grandfather that owned KK Cycles, and they gave me just products. I'd say, hey man, I need some chains. All right, I'll send them to you. Hey
Was
man,
it
I need
Bosch or Denso or
Bosch spark plugs. My brother contacted Wolfgang Bosch in Germany and spoke to him and made all these contacts. And Wolfgang, funny name, he sent me boxes and boxes of Bosch spark plugs, and I'm like, so I'm running them. I got my sticker on there, and I'm selling them to other racers, because I'm doing good with Bosch. What's your secret? Well, Bosch spark plugs, obviously. But I mean, not everybody fell for that. But anyway,
I thought it was the Shine.
No, moonshine, no. That's extra racing fuel additive that some of us had. Dale Singleton started that. But anyways,
Run a moonshine in the tank.
Not honest, really. Yeah. That's just a joke.
That goes along with the hillbilly thing.
Yeah.
So, what kind of bikes were you racing back then?
Well, I was a motocrosser. I raced pro motocross. I won a few big races racing motocross when I was just a kid. I mean, I'd come home from the races, come to school Monday morning, high school, and the cheerleaders were like, oh, did you see Billy Bob throw that touchdown pass? I'm like, big deal. How much money did he win? Well, I don't reckon he won any money. What'd you do yesterday? I said, well, I won 6 motos at Mont Eagle. I won the super mini class, the 125 and the 250 class, both motos. So I got in $50 a pop. I mean, I came home with some cabbage. That's a lot of money back then. And I was like, of course, if they'd had a motocross team at school, I'd have lettered, Yeah. But anyway, the only thing I did at school, athletic, was run track and cross country, and that was just to stay in shape, so I could race. But,
and he was sick enough of school that he took summer school to get it over with.
I did. I got out of school a year early because I already had my, quote, motorcycle dealer racer career in hand. And the principal there wouldn't sign off on letting me do that. He says, no, if you had a real career like a lawyer or a doctor, or like this lady over here, we let her go to summer school to finish up, but not you. And I'm like, okay, so I didn't get the authority. So the day summer school started, my mom called Dale Carter, who was the superintendent at the time, and said, hey, my son needs to start today, and we don't have well, no problem, I'll put you in. So anyway, I did my 1/4 of economics, had all my credits, so I came back to pick up my diploma at school, and my principal, I rode up on the motorcycle. He didn't like that. He didn't like motorcycles. He lived in my neighborhood too. But anyway,
that's why I didn't like motorcycles.
I wheelied by his house all the time. But
was
anyway.
this at East Ridge?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Mac Franklin.
Yeah.
I have to tell you the
call him out.
Yeah, it was him. He just handed me a diploma. No congratulations. No nothing. He's like, not a word. He hated that I did the end around on him. But anyway, if I had it to do over again, I'd have took my senior year. I mean, it was something. But I did really have something going with motorcycles. Obviously,
But you're talking about your TZ. Sorry, we got off on that.
Yeah. So anyway, I broke my back. I got hit by a car, and I couldn't race motocross anymore, or I didn't think I should. So I had to race. So I had a 750F, a 79 Honda 750F, and
that's the article that came out that was like in the East Lake Park. You took pictures and all that.
Yeah. The Chattanooga Free Press came and took pictures of me and everything. But I won the amateur national championship. Now I won Charlotte. I won Talladega. I went to all the East Coast wins, and I didn't know I was going to win a national championship, but I did. So then Uncle Ed says, well, you need a Yamaha TZ250 and go racing in the lightweight class. And had sent in a resume. It was $6,500 in 1981, and Dad got me.
It came with some extra parts too, didn't it?
Oh, it came with spare cranks, like 30 sets of rings, 10 pistons, different gear ratios. I mean, it was something.
A jet kit.
Oh yeah, all the jets.
And so, like that bike, because two strokes were so sensitive, especially the twins, they came with all these different jets, and you kind of had to figure out how to jet a bike to be able to race.
Well, it took me. I was telling the story at your shop earlier. My first international lightweight 100 miler, which I think was actually 82, I went at Daytona. It's a 100-mile race, and so I did you spend all week. You're tuning, you're getting your jetting, you're gearing right. You're asking questions, you're talking to various sponsors that know things, and it was a champion spark plug guy there that could look at your spark plug. He could tell you from looking at your plug, you need to advance your timing by 0.1 millimeters, and you're like one jet size off in the mid-range. And the dude was a genius from looking at a spark plug. I did not know that kind of technology was available. But anyway, finish the story. I raced the whole race. I worked my way into the top 10. There's 80 riders, international race. I mean, world champions were there and everything. And I was like, wow, I'm top 10. I'm like, I'm flying around. I ran out of gas last lap. I mean, get cold chills from that. I mean, I was crying like I was bawling. I'm down there on the apron like, oh, man. Oh. And that's what everybody was doing on the warm-up lap. They pulled over to the pit wall, some of them, and were topping off their gas tanks. Nobody told me to do that. They didn't want to tell me because
they want to give you the advantage.
Exactly. They wanted to beat me. I mean, they
thought
did.
you had something figured out.
Yeah. But anyway, that was harsh. I raced that bike 82, 83, 84, 85, and then the new TC came out, and it was a very special Delta box frame, aluminum frame bike, and that's the one I'm in Mid-Ohio on.
But you talked to me about like always covering the clutch because you never knew when that thing was going to lock up on a straightaway.
Well, that's the thing on the GP 250 bike. So I'm 10 deep at Daytona. We're going 150 mile an hour, and the first guy moves a bit, everybody moves. It's like a conga line,
The wind would almost pull you into that.
Oh, it does. It does. If you get outside of it, it's like, whoosh, you're just like, the draft. So you had to be careful. You had to gear it maybe a half a tooth taller than you could actually pull yourself, because you'll find yourself over revving in that. So ideally, you back off a little bit and then get back on it and time it to where you pull out of it just in time without hitting them, so that your momentum carries you around them. That's the whole slingshot drafting, idea. And you do that right before, the chicane or the first turn, so you can be set up for it, start braking. But there was a lot of thought to that now. But talking about your finger on the clutch, always have one finger on the clutch, no matter what I'm riding, anytime, always have one finger on the clutch, because here I am going 155. And I'm one jet size too lean, perhaps, and the back tire just locks up. And you pull in the clutch, and you put up your hand right away, and people are going by. I'm like, don't hit me. And people do that, and you had to watch for that. I'm watching ahead. The guy sees, but I went through a few seizures to learn, how far you could advance the timing, what kind of fuel you could run. The higher the octane, the more you could advance the timing. I mean, and it's just a lot of things that
you're worried about fuel mixture too and all that.
Yeah, I ran Castrol R, the bean oil, which most people ran. I mean, towards the end of my career, I call it a career, but it really wasn't a career. It was just a hobby for me. I was just having fun. Really, I'd win enough money to get to the next race, and drive to Laguna Seca, and race out there. And of course, made a lot of friends along the way, and and I was, happy to be friends with all these guys. I mean, I'm proud to know these guys like Bubba Schobert, Scott Russell, Kevin Schwantz. Yeah. I even got to race with Eddie Lawson before. I mean, he smoked me, but anyway, he's one of my heroes. And Freddie Spencer, and
that's pretty cool.
Kenny Roberts. I got to meet Kenny a couple of times. He's a little arrogant, but who wouldn't be if you were King Kenny? And it's like his card says on his card says King. Kenny Roberts, King. Now, who can get away with that? Who can get? I mean, can you imagine somebody? Yeah, but anyway, he's an amazing guy. But for the sport, again, just a hobby for me, kind of. I mean, I wanted to win, obviously, and I did some. But
what I was getting at, as far as like your oil mixtures, I mean, I've learned a lot about just two-stroke oil mixture.
Yeah.
From you, because when you're tuning one of those TZs, something as small as that can come into play. You've talked about that. You've talked about even barometric pressure and oxygen content in the air. Like all of that comes into what you're doing as far as tuning your jetting.
Yeah, we had an air density meter that we had to keep, okay? So the morning of the final race, you've got your last practice session. Your jetting is perfect. You've got your gearing, you're thinking it through, you're making laps in your mind. And then all of a sudden, right before the race, you go look at that air density meter. Ooh, it went up. So that's going to lean me out. So in an effort to, keep from seizing an engine, a piston or a crank, I had to go up one size on the main jet.
Yeah.
To cover that. And
you're tearing down a bike and rebuilding a carburetor constantly.
Oh yeah, I mean, funny thing, when I won Mid-Ohio, this is an interesting story. So I went out there in the heat race. Me and Donnie Green were battling for the win. I got second in the heat race. I thought, man, everything's great. It's perfect. I'm not going to do nothing to the bike, but let me pull the exhaust just to look. So I pulled the exhaust. I looked up in there, and you could see the piston. The top of my piston had been hitting the head. It had been hitting the head, and I CC'd it and everything and did all the right stuff I was supposed to do, but I didn't allow for rod stretch.
Yeah.
At 13,000 RPMs, there's rod stretch. Who would have thunk it? So I'm like, oh man, so I had to tear it down. I got the pistons ate up. So Tad Takasu with Yamaha just happened to be there that weekend. And I took it to him and I said, hey man, what's going on? He goes, okay, I'm sorry for the accent, but he's no problem. You take a 2-base gasket, run them a 2-base gasket, no problem. I'm like, okay, but okay, we can do that. That's going to change my port timing and everything. But anyway, he was, smart guy. He's an engineer with Yamaha. So I went back and I think, well, the compression is what's making me competitive with these Hondas this year. I was the only Yamaha to win a race that year in the class, the 250 GP. I actually got my micrometer and I measured all my base gaskets that I had, and I found 2 that were slightly thicker than the rest. And I ran a slightly thicker base gasket, and that worked. So, anyways, new pistons, of course. I like to break them in before the race, but didn't get to this time because there wasn't enough time. But
it's crazy how much stuff has changed.
I mean, you're talking tenths of millimeters.
Yeah, and that was before computers.
Yeah.
It was like a guess and check thing back then.
Yeah. I mean, some of the guys, some of these engineers and stuff, they use their computers. I mean, but us regular guys out here in the field, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing as far as, that. I mean, port timing, I was able to CC my heads and stuff, but, I had to shave the head a lot to get, the compression I needed. The Hondas were really great when they first came out with the V-twin. Mine was a tandem twin Yamaha, but anyway.
That TZ wasn't what you won this trophy with, was it?
It was.
Oh, it was?
Yeah. Now this was the Hurricane. When the Hurricane came out in '87, that was Honda's first, full fairing sport bike. In fact, and so they just started the 600 Super Sport class, and at Daytona was the first race. It was a whole new class. Everybody was excited. It's something new, and you're based on a stock vehicle, so it's what wins on Sunday, sells on Monday, kind of thing, and that's what they were hoping for. So I got one, and we did a lot of work to it. We, made a ram air system. We changed the jetting. Kaz Yoshima, my brother, got a hold of him, and he sent us a slip-on exhaust for it. And anyway, there were like 120-something entries in this, and I actually started on pole at the very first 600 Super Sport National.
Wow.
And I led the first lap. And I really wanted to be on the podium. I really wanted to be. But I got 4th.
Yeah.
Which was good, but, anyway, it was. I can say that I led the first lap ever of the 600 Super Sport class.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Didn't win me much money, but, And again, I got to a point I didn't really want any more trophies. I wanted to win some money to get to the next race and stuff, or to, have fun with and travel with. And living in that van, I got so good at, I had to work on the van. I mean, I got get down the road out here. So okay, U-joint's about to go out. I had a bunch of U-joints. I'd pull over, climb under it, change the U-joint. We eventually figured out why I had to change the U-joint.
I was going to say something was another causing story. That.
Well, I'm learning as I go. It was the drive shaft without a balance is what it was. So I didn't know they balanced those. Who knew? I don't know.
I worked on motorcycles, not cars.
Yeah,
exactly. It's a different world.
Live and learn.
Yeah. That's what you talk to a lot of guys that start riding motorcycles, and they're not mechanically inclined at all. But then you start riding bikes, and you learn how to work on because they're easier to work on than a car, just because everything's more accessible.
And it's exposed. I mean, except for these fully faired bikes now, though, it's like a. So I remember being at the Honda meeting, a service meeting, when the Hurricane came out, and this dealer, some of the Japanese guys had come in, to see us and tell us some of the features, and and so this old guy says, "Well, heck, when you fall over, first time you fall over, you done $1,000 worth of damage." And this Japanese guy, he goes, he said, not supposed to fall down. And I remember that was so funny. It always stuck with me. Like, he's right.
You're not
supposed to fall down.
I mean, it'd be like saying the first time you hit a guardrail in your car, you just did $10,000 worth of damage.
Exactly.
Well, don't hit the guardrail.
Yeah. Doctor, it hurts when I do this. Don't do that. That was on E-Haul,
Yeah.
With Nurse Goodbody told him not to do that. I think Nurse
Does it hurt when you do that? Yeah, well, don't do that. Don't fall down. That's great advice.
Common sense, A lot of people don't have that nowadays.
Yeah, it's not motocross.
Yeah, you can fall down on motocross, you can still win.
Yeah.
But you can't.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, you can't on a road
I wanted
race.
to bring up that trophy though, because that is you raced at Daytona several times, some more successful than others, and you talked about one that you were in GP shift at one point and not the next.
Okay, that's 1989. The Yamaha FZR 600 came out. And it was finally a bike that would outrun the Honda Hurricane. Okay, it was the newest, latest, greatest. My cousin Ronnie Moore, rest in peace. Him and his sister Janet, my other cousin, from Ed Cycles, got me the FZR 600, and it was a black one. And of course, we did all the same things, getting ready for the Super Sport race. And so, anyway, the CCS race, which is the week before the actual national. So I'm out there. Same guys are out there, the top riders and stuff, and it's all professional riders. I mean, it's these aren't novices. And anyway, I'm racing. I'm in second. I'm leading. I led the last several laps. I'm going to the line, and I see the checkered flag. I'm in fifth. I'm going to sixth. I went the wrong way with the shifter. Wing! I went to fourth. Because the GP bike is 1 up and 5 down.
Yep.
And the street bike's 1 down, 5 up. Now, I could have switched it over, which, in hindsight, I should have done. And I'm like, oh, no, I got it. I know.
I can remember.
Yeah. So, but in the heat of the moment,
Muscle memory took over.
Yeah. I'm going to 5th or 6th. I'm like, yeah. And Michael Barnes went by me. Woo, fist in the air. Woo, Michael Barnes. So the next week, Cycle News full page ad, Yamaha and Michael Barnes dominate Daytona. Next page, Dunlop and Michael Barnes. Shoey helmets with Michael Barnes, Castrol oil, Michael Barnes, everything. I'm like, man, they didn't even mention me at all. I led most of the whole race, but hey, that's part of it. Right? At least I didn't crash.
The only thing that matters is the last lap.
That's right. You got to finish.
Lucky that thing didn't blow up on you.
Yeah, it's got a rev limiter, but still.
Yeah.
But
Good.
it slowed down really quick.
I bet.
It almost went over the bars, and I cannot believe I just did that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you knew exactly what gear you're in and all that. Like, you don't forget something like that.
Did he tell you thank you after the race?
We never talked about it till years later. I caught up with him in the pits at Daytona when I was in there spectating. He still raced. He won the Daytona again. He won the Daytona 200.
He was racing until very recently.
Yeah. I mean, he's a great rider. But I told him, I said, you remember that? He goes, yeah. He said, well, that was me. He goes, I wondered what happened. I didn't know. And, I missed the gear. He goes, wow.
Didn't he send you something afterward, or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thanks, Ricky.
Yeah. But then, so this was actually after this. So that whole race was after this.
That was on the TZ250. That was a CCS race. It was all the same factory riders are in it because
Scott Russell was in that one.
He actually was in that Hurricane race. I beat him at Daytona in '87.
Yeah.
Mr. Daytona. In fact, he signed a thing for me. I got it home and said, "Thanks for the Daytona whooping."
That's awesome.
But he had Daytona down better than anybody. He was a real crazy natural talent. Scott Russell
talked about it, like how you think that's going to be a top end track, but since you're doing a lot of the infield, it becomes more of a mid range track.
That's weird that you said that. You'd think top end track, and that's what everybody thinks. It's real horsepower wins it. But mid-range horsepower, I've found, is a lot of times better than peak horsepower. So you've got your bike tuned to get, you're on a dyno. That's why I never trusted dynos. You can have the most horsepower. You can have 110 horsepower here, and this guy with 100 horsepower passes you down the back straight because he's got more power and a more usable range, and you can't keep it at exactly that RPM, the whole time.
Well, it doesn't matter if your bike is capable of 200 miles an hour if it takes a long time for you to get there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you could pull a taller gear. What you don't want to do is wind out sixth gear and you're bouncing off the rev limiter and you still got a ways to go to the turn, You're just you want to be able to pull all the way and have a slight bit on reserve, like I said, a half a tooth. You can change half tooth. You have to change both sprockets, but ideally you'll have two bigger sprockets than the smaller ones because it's less rotary resistance. And actually people don't use O-ring chains on road race bikes, or at least the 250s we didn't, because it was resistance, and it would actually measurable horsepower on the dyno, which I never, like I said, I never used the dyno. There's no one thing that made you faster than anybody else. It's the combination of all the tiny things. And I learned so much from Donnie Green, a good friend of mine who was a Formula 2 champ for year after year after year, and we in contact some now over Facebook. That's what's cool about Facebook. I find new pictures of me racing and Donnie racing and all my friends, and stuff. That's what makes Facebook so interesting. Stuff I would never see otherwise, was there.
Yeah, the stuff that's stuck in everybody's photo albums.
Yeah.
And share with everybody else. That's one of the positive things about social media.
So after the whole racing career, Cycle News came out with this again later. And that was
2011.
That's 2011. So they kind of brought it back, got a full spread in Cycle News, just kind of reminiscing about things like that happened. They'd always feature an old racer. But that's kind of cool. Kind of revisiting, you can kind of see the full spread ad that they took out after he won Mid-Ohio. Griffith and his TZ250, fast enough for two firsts in one race. So what was the two firsts?
Well, I went to Victory Lane twice that weekend, actually. I won the GTU on the FJ600.
Is that what that was?
They were talking about my first GP 250 win, which they thought I was going to win more. I never did. But they did give me a new TZ250, the new 87 model. It came in, I think it sold for $12,000. But anyway, it came in, and the bill was $1,000. I'm like, well, they left a zero off or something. But no. They just gave me the bike.
That's awesome.
They gave me the bike.
You just had to pay the shipping and the
Yeah,
taxes.
the $1,000 was the air freight from Japan. Awesome.
So for reference, it's a 250 two-stroke.
Yeah, they put close to 80 horsepower. They weighed 220 pounds. I would blow by 750s. Back then, some of them. Of course, the 600s and 750s now have really stepped up. Right now,
750s would beat you off the line, but it's more about maintaining corner speed so that you can reach that top speed and blow by 'em.
Corner speed. Yeah, like Mid-Ohio, the track I was on, that was a rider's track. It was like up and down, elevation changes, curves, and just being in the right gear at the right time, setting it up, getting planted before you get back on the gas, and that's something else. A lot of people don't realize. Well, he outrun me. His bike's a lot faster than me. Well, actually, he carried his speed out of the turn, and he was able to get in that higher gear sooner. So, that's something I had to learn. Doug Poland, who won that race at the 600 Supersport National, he had a stock exhaust on it. Stock. I told you I had the slap on. But, stock. But anyway, it had been modified. Mike Velasco had actually cut it apart and ripped the guts out and put it back together. So it really, made us all look bad that he beat us with a completely stock bike, which it wasn't. But anyway, it's like back then there was a lot of creative cheating going on.
Yeah.
Well, when you're running with, even though it's a lot, 80 horsepower, 220 pounds, you're still riding at the limit the whole time.
Yeah.
So it's not, you're not going to beat somebody just based on having more power.
Yeah. And there's some tracks different than others, but like Laguna Seca was one of my favorite tracks, although I never had any luck there. I really had a 87. I was battling for the win. I was battling for a podium. Cork Ballington was there. Rich Oliver. I think Rainey raced at Laguna. I was trying to think of all the big names that were in that. John Kaczynski, Cal Rayburn. Anyway, I'm going from second to fifth to sixth to second to third, and it's just a real battle. I'm like probably 6 to 8 laps in. I'm going into corkscrew, and Dan Shivington comes out of nowhere up the inside, loses his front, he crashes, takes me out. So I crashed. I pick up my bike, my tank falls off and rolls down the hill. So I jog down the hill, get my tank. It's pouring gas. I turn it off. I put it up, put it on. My strap's still there. I put my tank on. Pieces of my fairing I throw away. I take off dead last, 45th. That's all they'd allowed there. So I'm 45th place. I got to get 15th to win any money just so I could make it home. You know, I think 15th paid like $900. You know,
Yeah.
so I am flying. I'm like reportedly the fastest guy on the track. I am mad as a hornet. I am flying. I'm passing 2 or 3 people a turn. You know, and I'm passing a guy right at the end, last lap, and I got 16th.
Oh.
No money. Bubba Schobert invited me to his party, gave me money, took care of me. I paid him back. Good guy. Great guy. But it's always good to have friends, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to call Dad. Hey, Dad, send money. You know?
How did you send money back then?
Oh, yeah, you'd have to.
Wire transfer?
Well, what was it?
And it would have been on a Sunday, so.
What's it? What is that? Not Wells Fargo.
That Wells Fargo used to have a transportation company.
No,
That's
it
how
was
they
the
got
one you
started,
could do
but-
over the phone.
Yeah, you could send it. I forgot what
Oh,
it's
you're
called.
talking about money orders, basically.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, overnight, whatever.
Western Union.
Western
Yeah,
Union.
Western Union.
That's it.
What,
Yeah.
It's been a long time
I
since
knew
I've
one of
heard
us
that.
could come up with that. Yeah,
They
we
used
can
to
just
have the
Venmo
commercials.
now.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's easy.
That's like, Venmo. I never got Venmo. So when I'm working on some of my friends' bikes, and I'm like, well, it's this much money. Well, I'll Venmo you. Okay, I'll just send it to my wife. She'll know what to do. She'll know.
Like, don't you have cash?
Sometimes.
But we brought some other pictures I want to kind of talk about too. He's showing one right now, which is our Triumph Bonneville.
Oh, yeah.
So that was an article that I actually wrote in Kickstand Up magazine, but that's actually the Triumph Bonneville 750 Electro, which was great because it had electric start. It still had a backup Kickstarter, like the original dirt bikes did whenever they came out with electric start. So, and then you see on the lower right hand corner, that's my grandfather, my dad standing next to it later in life. That's probably about a year before he died. But that's in the original building where it was delivered, all that. That bike still to this day has never been started or titled. It's a 1982 model. So, and actually,
that's the one y'all pushed everywhere?
yeah, it's been pushed 3 miles.
3 miles?
But Triumph was where this ring came from. I think I mentioned that before. But yeah, so selling Bonneville's paid for this ring and got that bike, and he just decided to keep it since it's the last one we got. If you want to look at a different one. And so there's that Triumph Bonneville, their early days. I don't know, would that be a 1982 picture or no?
No, it was later. This is, I think that's right before, I'm not sure if that's after we reopened Griffiths or not.
It's done on Dodds, isn't it?
That'd
Yeah.
be before, because you got the old parts fish.
Okay, maybe
See the
you're
old
right.
part
So
finder?
that's before we sold out in 2004. We made a deal with Tim Kelly in 04, and that's when we started Southern Honda. And I, had a non-compete clause. I stayed and worked and helped manage that place for several years. And then I was like, I always wanted to have my own place. So I quit and reopened Griffith Cycling, got some good brands, KTM, Beta Gas, Arctic Cat, there's my brother, me, and my dad. That's a great picture somebody took. I don't know who took it. I can't give them credit. But that was in 1987 there. I could tell from the 86 shirt that I had on. But unfortunately, I've lost both of those. But those guys are the world to me. They were my world for so many years. And
So it's your brother on the left?
yeah, he was 5 years older than me. Not always the best influence on me, but I could have gotten in trouble on my own too. But,
If anything, he gave you a foil, he gave you something to fight against, because that was, his path. You didn't want to go down that path.
well, yeah, he got. I think he got good before he passed, but we always just hope for mercy.
Which there's a 30-year Honda plaque showing that we were there around. We got to 40 years, didn't we?
Well, see, he got Honda in 63 or 64?
66.
I think he got it before that.
Okay.
You may be right.
I think it's 66 because he built the building in 67 to house it.
Right. I knew he had them across the street on Dodge Avenue, but he started out in a one building, lived in a one room apartment upstairs. He bought a shop, had 2 motorcycles, I think it was 2, and he bought it back, sold it back, bought it back, sold it back. People would show up in the evening and say, "Hey," knocking on the door, "Hey, can you sell me a clutch cable?" He said, "I'll be right down." He'd come down, and he was a self-made man, and real proud of what my dad did. He was certainly a...
So his cousin had started that in 1936, and he sold it to my grandfather Don in 1956. They had Triumph motorcycles and Schwinn bicycles.
Yeah.
And my grandfather, working for his dad, learned how to pinstripe and do all that. So he'd do that at the shop as well as having the workshop as usual. But you look at some of these old photos of the old buildings that they were in, and I was trying to find the one where you had Howard, my great grandfather. Basically, he had enough room for a workbench and space to walk, maybe have a bike there. But these shops were small. They weren't the big giant showrooms that we see today, and it's more of just bootstrap effort.
Yeah,
you
I remember when the Dodds Avenue shop was just the one small building before y'all built the new one.
And the building we're talking about is
you're not
right
that
there.
old. I know you're talking about the other.
Yeah.
I extended it on down
Exactly.
with the other one. Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
But
When you came back.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
You're calling that small, but we were in the building across the street up until 1967, and then the building like the one you saw,
Just part of that building, just the center part. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a Helen's Beauty Supply on the other side, beauty salon,
Yeah.
And of course, everybody smoked cigarettes. And I learned from a guy in the shop back there, this guy named Larry Heinman. He was a great guy. He smoked those filterless Pall Malls, and they'd be smashed all over the ground. We didn't worry about, fire hazards or nothing like that. He worked in shorts and flip-flops. So it's like when the Honda rep comes around, Dad's like, "Could you wear some pants and some shoes tomorrow?" Our Honda guy's coming. And he wouldn't even do it. He's like, "Oh, well, whatever." I mean, he's that good of a mechanic. I learned so much from the guy. But
I think that next picture here will show the old building. So that's the 1967 building, and that's actually from the article of when that building was built, and so that was a big deal. That tree's long gone, but about where that tree is was where the original 1956 shop was.
it was to the right some, but
Right.
Still, this right there.
Isn't that where the sign is now? Where that tree
Yeah.
is?
Yeah, a little further out.
Yeah.
Yeah, where the sign is pretty much where the shop was, and like he said, he worked up downstairs and lived upstairs, and I also talk about my grandmother. She got like $150 every month or every week or every other week. I can't remember what the period was, but from teaching, and so part of that would go to the rent,
Yeah.
and then part for groceries, and like she had it measured out how much they had to spend.
Yeah, my mom taught high school at Rossville, and notable guy she taught was Nelson Bowers, was one of our students.
Yeah.
So anyway, when we ran into Nelson a few times and talked about that, he asked about her. But anyway, my mom's still kicking, 92.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting to me, anyway.
What do we have here?
Oh, that is me on my first bike. That's a Triumph Cub. I grew into it really quickly. That's my dad there. He just got out of the Air Force. He had what they called a high and tight. That was the haircut. They called it high and tight. And then that's a neighborhood kid. That's not my brother, as people thought. But that's a cool picture. I was almost literally born on a motorcycle. That's all I know. As you can see. But I wish I had that old Triumph Cub. Picture of my dad in 1949. He was 19 years old, racing a Harley flat tracker, and it had no brakes. I mean, it was illegal to have brakes back then. You shifted down. It's a 3-speed with a foot clutch. Had what they called a suicide clutch, and that's what Dad told me about anyway. I mean, obviously I never...
Well, we talk about he did a lot of racing. So this picture is when he died in 2012. We kind of just set up that picture with a bow on it to kind of memorialize him for a while.
Yeah.
But we had that picture in the shop for a long time, and he also raced. And back then there weren't a whole lot of news articles out about it. There wasn't any footage or any of that. But he he raced on the beach at Daytona a lot. I mean, every year.
He raced at the big track on Daytona Ducati. He raced. He was a Ducati dealer.
Right. Yeah.
Dad was at one time, and he was proud of himself because he built his own engine and he beat the factory Ducatis, and he rode the 76-mile novice race, which used to be a big thing at Daytona during Bike Week. Bike Week's changed so much,
But they used to race on the beach, and if I've seen the pictures correctly, like they had like a barrel, basically. You'd go around a barrel on each end of the beach.
Well, you go down A1A and then back up the beach.
Yeah.
And I don't think Dad raced that.
He did. He told me about it.
Okay.
Back when I used to stay with him while you were working all day.
Oh, okay.
Well, when I was
Fair
staying
enough.
with him, so whenever I was at, I'd go to school. Your mom would pick me up, and he'd come home, and depending on whenever you got there to pick me up or mom, I'd have dinner with him.
Have
Whatever.
a good conversation.
But you were talking to me, or he was talking to me at one point about how, like, with that 250 Ducati, you actually had to like raise and lower the float level.
Oh yeah, and the steering damper.
Yeah.
So he'd have to get on the back straight. So he'd have to turn the float level down in the infield, whoa, whoa, so he didn't have too much gas. And on the back straight, you'd run out of gas. He'd have to flip down and turn the float level up, whoa, so he could pull out. And he had to do it every lap. And the steering damper, when he got at higher speeds, he had to tighten it down so it wouldn't shake. And then he got to the infield, he had to loosen it up so he could control it better. So it was real. He had to do all this while you rode, which is...
That's skill right there.
Well, yeah, you get used to it, I guess, after a while. But
Well, we talk about like all the technology that's on bikes today, and you have a lot of people watching MotoGP saying you're taking the rider out of it. Well,
Yeah.
you're talking about you're coming from that. You're getting rid of the go back in time. You're getting rid of the traction control. You're getting rid of the ABS, the ride modes, ride by wire, and all that. And you have a fully analog bike. We're calling it fully analog, but it still had fuel injection and all of that. But so you're taking a little bit of the mechanic aspect of it. You back up to the days you were racing. You got like jets. You're having to worry about. You're covering the clutch. You're having to worry about the mechanics of the bike while riding. You back up to my grandfather's racing, and you have stuff like that. And then you go back to suicide shift. No brakes. Shifted down. Like all of this stuff. Like we've made it simpler and simpler for the rider.
yeah.
And it gets to where it's more just pure racing. But at what point are we going too far? At what point are we letting the computers win the race for us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Run what you brung. That's kind of like the old NASCAR. I like the idea of the old NASCAR. They got so many rules and regulations that keep changing. I've never been one for rules. I don't like rules.
And you've never shown that on the streets of East Ridge, have you?
Oh no, that's against the law.
Statute of limitations.
I was just talking on the way here when we passed that four-wheel stop up here at State Line Road.
Yeah.
I was telling Jeff, me and my friend Mike Culpepper, I was wheeling a bike, showing off in front of some girls at Lake Winnie, XL 250R, XL 500R. And here's J.D. Stewart in the Trans Am, blocks the road right in front of me. So I'm like, I waved at him, I jumped the ditch, took off through the yard. Well, he chased us. He wanted us so bad. I flew through that four-way stop, ran off the road a couple times, got away, of course.
But he knew who you were.
Well, you might have found out later. But, I never had a valid tag.
Yeah.
I just never did. I don't know why. I was an outlaw, I guess. But we came back in my 78 Firebird, me and my friend Mike Culpepper. We both got away, obviously. So we got the car, and I was driving back up Clare Street up here. And here he was, looking up and down, looking for us. And I couldn't resist it. I'm like, hey, did you get the immediates on them motorcycles? Oh, hell yeah, we got them. Oh, yeah. He had a few dirty words he used, but anyway, he got us. Oh, yeah, we got him. Good. About ran me over back there. I'm like, but anyway, just couldn't resist it. I got several stories like that, but
Well, that's all the stories I've heard about you from high school from my dad was just riding wheelies around East Ridge.
Yeah, we all got our thing,
And it got to the point in certain times that the cops didn't even mind. Like they knew he was not reckless in doing that. There's a lot of people out there. If you get on one wheel, it's pretty reckless. But I mean, you got a professional racer. That's a little different story.
That is so funny because I was like 15. I'm in Mission Oaks over here. I'm wheeling a Can-Am 175.
Why?
I know. Why did I even have it? I don't know. So I'm wheeling it up the road, no helmet. My dad, my mom, everybody's out in the yard. Everybody's out having a good time. Kids are out playing. And I got to the top of the hill and I let it down, and there it was, police, ERPD. He says, "We got you this time, Griffith." I'm like, "This time? I mean, have you been trying to get me before?" And I just didn't know it. But anyway, so he gave me a ticket for reckless driving. So we ended up going to juvenile court. We was in like a chambers with the judge and the police officer, and he says, reckless driving. He says, "What do you got? How do you plead?" "Oh, well, not guilty." And my dad answered for me, and he says, "Let me ask you a question, officer." He says, "Was my son going over the speed limit?" "Well, no." He says, "But was he in his own lane?" "Yes." He says, "But he was on the back wheel." And my dad said, "Well, my son can ride better on one wheel than most people can on two." And the guy's like, "Oh, dismissed. Don't do that anymore."
So you're the reason they changed the law.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, now they'll get you with that real fast.
I know.
I've been pulled over for just standing up.
So that's,
I know.
Oh yeah,
I get away every time.
Yeah.
They're like, "You can't stand up on a bike. It's distractive driving."
Yeah.
I
I'm
was like,
sorry, my butt hurts.
So
"It's hot.
so
I'm airing out."
So what's really funny is after I moved to Cleveland, I live off Bates Pike up there. I've got my 500 EXC, and I'm just riding around the neighborhood, checking the place out. I'm getting used to my environment, and I'm doing a few wheelies, and I turn down my street, which is Lake Drive, and I go, whoa, wheelie all the way down there, and I'm like braking real hard, and I turn around, and there's Bradley County, pulls up, and I'm like, okay, I just sat there, took my helmet off. He goes, "You live here?" I said, "Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, "Oh, no. He said, "That was great." He goes, "That was awesome." He said, "I just made sure it wasn't some kid I was going to have to scrape up off the road." I said, "No, it's just an old man. You'd have to scrape up off the road if I crashed, but let me go." I mean, that's how you make your mark.
They do the same thing to me,
Yeah.
especially if I'm on my CBR. They'll pull you over because they think you're going to do something. I take my helmet off, and they realize I'm not some kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Man, you don't have to worry about me. I promise."
Yeah, but in their defense, I mean, there are kids out there that shouldn't. I mean, I lost a cousin, that was trying to go fast on a bike, and there's a lot of sad stories about that. And I hate to be the guy that was the bad influence, really, But
You talk about pulling people into turns they couldn't make, and regretting that. I think Avery was one of those.
Yeah, there's several. My brother, one of them, and the guy Bill Wade, I crashed trying. I'm like, don't try to keep up with me. Don't do what I do.
Yeah, ride your own ride.
I will wait for you.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
I don't know. You can't trust people with their own diligence. You can't trust them, so you kind of have to pace yourself at the same time.
I'm always that guy when we go ride, especially to go to like the Dragon or the Skyway or whatever. They pull over to take a break, and then I'm the one pulling in at the end, and then everybody's ready to go by the time I pull in.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
I need a break because I ride like an old man.
But they're ready to go.
They're ready to go. I'm like,
This is a good time for a disclaimer. Like, this is how he has learned lessons and how I have learned lessons from his example. We all learn from experience, whether it's our own experience or someone else's experience. Riding fast on the street, he's talking about people follow you into it, get yourself hurt. Not everyone's a professional rider.
Yeah,
wrecking on the street is not fun.
it hurts.
Well, I bought a bike brand new from you, and then wrecked it the next day.
Oh wow, I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was 2006 CBR F4i, the yellow one.
Yeah, I love that bike.
Bought it brand new from you.
That was a great all-around bike.
It
was.
was.
One of the
Well,
best.
I've still got. I've got a 2006. I've got a blue one now. Love that bike.
Yeah.
I'll probably never sell it because it's worth more to me than what I could get for it.
Right.
And it's in pristine condition.
Nice.
But we bought it from you new. Ordered a new helmet and jacket, and because they didn't have anything, it was at Southern.
Yeah.
And didn't have anything in my size. And I was coming back I left. It was pouring down rain when I left, and so I left in the rain. I had my old gear on.
Yeah.
And then either the next day or the day after, the stuff had come in, and so I didn't wear my gear because I was going to pick it up.
Oh.
And then it hit the concrete median coming around the
before you
ridge
got
cut.
it? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I was on my way to get my new helmet and my jacket.
You were on the freeway?
I was on the freeway.
Oh, that's terrible.
Coming from Fort Oglethorpe, going
Yeah.
down to get off at Ross Boulevard, and just coming around the ridge cut, just hit a pothole. And it was my first street bike. I'd grown up riding dirt bikes, and just hit a pothole and just didn't know how to recover and hit the median. That bike had like 50 miles on it, and then so we had it fixed, and then I traded it in on a pickup truck at a used car dealership. And so one of the guys there at the dealership was going to buy it and was going to take it for a test drive. Well, it was over on Brainerd Road right in front of the airport. He didn't make it out of the parking lot on that bike. He laid it down in the parking lot leaving and crashed it head first into like a brick planter.
It was
median.
jinxed.
It was. And so
cursed.
that bike had less than 100 miles on it and it was wrecked twice and was totaled after that one.
Oh my goodness!
It was wild.
Set it on fire.
That's it was scrapped after that. So,
Blow it up.
that was that's everybody was like, man, there's something wrong with that bike.
Wow.
So that was a funny story.
Well, you were hurt. Were you hurt bad?
You got some road rash done because I didn't have a jacket on. So,
So
no broken bones. Is just really bad 3rd-degree burns
Right.
all down my arm and inside.
That hurts.
Yeah, it
hurts.
was painful for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So, luckily I didn't die.
Right.
Somehow
Right.
didn't get ran over.
We are at an hour, but is there any last minute things y'all wanted to say?
Well,
It's all about you today, sir.
Well, I'm honored that you guys and humbled if you having me on, and I just thank everybody in the motorcycle industry for allowing me to be me, and I'm really thankful for the guys at Pandora for buying me out and giving me an opportunity to retire and still letting me be involved with motorcycling somewhat. I like to come around and offer any help or assistance that I can if needed.
And you've helped me lead rides and things like that, and I want to do some more of that for sure in the coming year. The only thing I have left to say, all of that racing stuff, all of that kind of came back to the shop. It wasn't just something like the motorcycle shop didn't exist without racing. The racing didn't exist without the motorcycle shop. They paired together. And whenever you're talking about doing all this tuning, particularly with the 2-strokes, it really, helped with those kind of things. And back then, you really had to be a mechanic. And now it's getting less and less that you're working on, like the actual part that the fuel flows through. Now it's more you're working with computers and things like that. So mechanicking has changed, but there's still those old school methods still have a place.
Yeah. Like it's funny, the valve adjustments. My dad, if you just set all your valves at 4,000s, you'll be fine. All valves, all motorcycles, 4,000s.
They didn't have it down to a science back then.
It's funny, though. He's really right. Still. I mean, I know some of them set on 8 and 10, but if you put them on at 4, it'll be all right. If you're not turning 16,000 RPMs or something.
But they are now.
Yeah, I know. That's what makes it not right anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
Really. But anyway.
Especially the Desmo stuff.
Well, the tappet ones.
The screw and tappet,
4,000s. I did get to the point where I didn't have to use field gauges, though, honestly. Like on the little Trail 70s and stuff. I mean,
whatever.
It don't make much difference. So.
All right. Well, that's our time. Gary, thank you.
Thank you,
It was
guys.
an honor. Appreciate it.
Son.
Good to see you guys again.
Ouch.
Got him with the ring.
Oh, yeah, that
All right.
diamond got me.
Well, this is Gary Griffith and with
Jeff Griffith
and Justin for Throttle Stop Moto Podcast, brought to you by Pandora's. We'll see you on the next one.
Wanna find trouble, run my way.